the word listening comes up for me. Like when there is less, I can listen more deeply. And I have that especially when I'm in like wild nature where there is a lot of aliveness, right? And like animals and but I can listen deeply and hear my truth or truth.
The container is now open. Today, we're bringing you the second half of our interview with Martje Witzel, a real master of surrendered leadership. She talks to us about the different pathways that open up in these practice spaces that lead to real, true, deep connection. And when we really get in there, like when we're really feeling ourselves deeply connected in that space, what are we encountering? And can we actually think about that, or should we think about that as God? It's big stuff. It's a great conversation. It's all coming up right now. We are here right now, including the listeners and the three of us, all because we are interested in these arts that build on relating.
Yeah.
And then when I hear you describe God, I hear like, yeah, relation itself, this huge, inescapable web of not individual things, but the little spindles of connection between everything.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, there's something really beautiful about seeing God that way, and then having these practices that allow us to sort of like get in a hot tub of it and just, what if we cleared everything except our appreciating of that relating.
And then, oh, that makes me, when we call it the practice, like that is the practice, right? Because we're practicing in this incubator, in this hot tub, as you say, like, and then when we're like in a place with a lot of people or a lot of things going on, we've got that practice to draw upon so that we can still be attempting to surrender into every moment, even when we don't have like a whole room of people that have agreed to do the same or something,
Yeah.
like at a
Yeah,
family reunion or
it's always available. And even like things like oh, I'm at like I was at a wedding just after the festival, and um I felt quite disconnected from what was happening, um and holding that as part of the connection of the whole.
ah. So in
Which
other words, not judging yourself for feeling that, or like just allowing that to be what it was. Is
even
that
like the judging, like it, yeah, this is a hard one. Like like I did judge myself. I had a strong sense I have to be different, or I want to feel different because I want to celebrate their love, and I feel disconnected.
mm-hmm.
And I'm in this place, and I often have that, and it's maybe an example of the interaction with you, Jonathan. On I often feel I'm representing another pole than that's present, especially in groups when there is a lot of like synergy and resonance. I'm in a dissonance,
Mm-hmm.
and I notice that mostly in circles. Um, like, oh, people are having fun, and I'm like angry, or and then but I don't know why. And in circles, it feels like easier to accept that or allow it. But then I was like, oh yeah, I kind of have that at birthday parties and at weddings. And then I was like, oh, because I often then judge it as me being different or me doing that thing. And now I'm shifting more into, oh, maybe I'm just representing something, and something comes through me to balance something out.
Right.
and
Ah.
and it's part of the whole.
Mm.
And then still there is my human mind that is like judging, like, oh, it's not like an easy place to be, I think, or like the most comfortable one. So then I'm like judging that I'm doing this thing, and then not judging the judging, well, blah blah, you can go on, and kind of it's part of the whole too.
Yeah.
And then there is like, I think where the leadership comes in for me is like practicing, oh, can I create a little space around that thinking?
Mm.
Not like, oh, it has to go away, because then I'm kind of not including it. But can I allow a little space around the thoughts? And often that relaxes something. And I'm still maybe feel the dissonance and the angry or the, yeah, fear. But uh, yeah, then there's less resistance and more surrender.
Hmm. Yeah, I was like really with you on that whole journey right just now. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's familiar and it's foreign and it's like, and um, it's almost like everything you said could be acted out like in just like a movement kind of,
Mm.
of ooh, just not that people on the podcast can see me right now, but people tuning into YouTube can see me doing
Like
the
and subscribe.
movements. It's just, that was just a beautiful, you just took me on a beautiful journey. So thank you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's funny how much of relating does take on these sort of like the attitudes of sculptors. Like there's these like
Yes.
templates of like, oh, right now I'm doing the grumpy at the party. I'm on that trip, and it's like this archetypal little like way you can be.
Yeah.
It's really strange how, yeah, those programs are so formulaic or like conventional.
Yeah, there's something in like making it less personal, right? Or less about the I. I
Mm.
think where in a way in the practices we're really exploring our inner world in relationship. But I noticed like in over the years it's evolving like more and more into a less, yeah, more and more into space around the I, or maybe it's not like personal but more archetypical, or I could see it as a force moving through me. um and then still there is the relationship. So when I would like be the tiger and I growl at someone because that's the thing that comes through, it does have an impact on the other person. And we do have awareness and choice, right? So like another, like, I think yesterday or the day before, I felt, oh, I feel that energy coming through like a growl, and we were with circling people, uh or people who circle, and I named it. Oh, I then I was more in the witness, like, oh, I feel that coming, and I kind of don't want to growl at you because it also didn't feel like really about them, or I don't know. There was, and then that person said like, oh yeah, but I want you to growl, and I was like, no, I really choose not to, because that feels more true than letting it just flow freely.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like balancing between, oh, like there's like maybe the non-personal and then the personal who can make
Whoa.
choices.
Yes. Yes. I had a very similar revelation recently of how even just, gosh, in my recent history, I was explaining this to you the other day, how when I started on my healing, like on my healing transformation journey, I can almost kind of like, it was like around a 6-month period where a lot of things started happening for me. And I was remembering back to that. And I often remember back to being on the table of my energy healer, like, because so many things happened there for me in the early days, and how just completely self-absorbed I was. Like
Mm.
self-absorbed with my problems and my like relationship issues and my childhood, and like just so self-absorbed and so of the earth, like on the surface level. And that now I spend so much of my time in this other place that isn't connected to me. It is me, but it's like that non-personal realm or something. And then sometimes I have to like zoom back in and go, oh, like I'm having a argument with my teenage daughter right now, and I need to like be,
Yeah, that's
but
still there, right? Like we don't
right.
like, yeah,
It
but
doesn't go away, but that used to be my whole entire existence, was the self, like the I, the me, the I. And now it's I visit it, and
Mm.
I don't know.
Hearing this interaction, I'm noticing that I had this unquestioned, I think, default stance of like, oh, I'm trying to push as far into the transpersonal, or like the archetypal, and move away from the I, as somehow that is an inherently good move.
mm,
Like that's what's good, and being in the I is bad. And there is like,
Oh
you have
yeah.
to get all the way away from I before you die, and then that's like that's the game or something. In a very unspoken, unwritten down way, I think this was sort of my background attitude, was just like, okay, we're trying to move all the way there, but then hearing you two, it's like, um it it seems obvious, like the best wisdom, it's always like, once you do hear it, it's like, oh yeah, obviously it's about knowing how, like, there is some authentic balance between the I and the like capital S self, the like Atman, and then the little me. um it's not about being one or the other, it's about like having this choicefulness around where I'm at in that spectrum. That's like extreme next level wisdom, I feel, being
Mm.
able to do that and to stay with that balance.
yeah. I think I got like a bit of an insight or around when you said archetypal, like moving towards that, and I think that is already here
Mm.
in us being our eyes. Otherwise, they're like it's archetypes became archetypes through myth stories, but also because humans act like like in a way, right? Like it's not like, of course we're unique and different, but we're all quite the same also. So that is how archetypes are created. So we're already there, like
Mm.
doing that. It's more like, oh, looking at it through that lens,
Mm-hmm.
which makes a difference. Or looking like, oh, can I like see like the grumpy me at the wedding as I'm representing something of the other pole. That's like putting a different lens on it, where it becomes less personal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that I am very different.
Mm.
Yeah.
That has me thinking of the after we left the festival, we went to the Louvre in
Mm.
Paris, almost directly.
Oh.
Festival Louvre. And there, I don't remember the name of the painting, but there
Mm.
was this huge painting. You'll remember it.
Yeah, David's the Sabine,
The Sabine.
the Sabines something, it's the scene of that,
It's like this massive
the
battle.
women stop them.
And there's like babies that are on the ground, and there's women, and there's men, and like there's like bows and arrows, and everyone is in this like pose, and I was looking at this painting and I was like, this looks like surrendered leadership. Painting, even down to the babies and like the mothers, like it just was describing scenes that I had lived in that room
Yeah.
so beautifully that I was just like, this is the expression of life force of humanity, of like archetypes of all of those things in a massive painting that's however 400 years old or whatever.
Mm.
I
It,
don't know.
it this brings me back to like a memory. I think it's 1.5 year ago where we had the first 7 day surrendered leadership training in Sweden. And then we're like 7 days in this container, like exploring the practice and being in it. Yeah. So, and then also it was a retreat. So you sleep there. So it was like this big container. And on the last day, it was just like magical for me. There was like the last circle, and it's it became kind of like this constellation, like where I think it's always in a way a constellation, but I got really conscious of it, where there was like death, rebirth, someone was representing a devil, and it felt like this whole weaving in this play of energies of, yeah, like humanness, but also archetypal. And then at one point, someone put on a song, and it was in Swedish, and it like I could understand what it was about, and it felt a bit like kind of like a psychedelic. Like I do in surrendered leadership spaces can see things that are not tangible. Often, I'm like quite. It's quite easy for me to open up for like the unseen, but this felt like then it's often still something. Yeah, it's in the space, but I see it humans and the unseen creatures or whatever. And now it was just like one weaving of it, and I could only like trust it. Like I just trusted that thing that was happening.
Mm.
Yeah. And for me it was really magical, and mostly even because we just did it ourselves. Like nobody told anybody what to do. And we
Right.
created that, right? Like
Yeah, just
yeah, I'm now like also aware of listeners like maybe thinking like, oh, that sounds really crazy or like weird or like, but it was like really love. Like I think love came true. And as is like always, but then it felt more present.
Are you enjoying this conversation? Luckily, there's some easy ways you can support the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. That really, really helps us. If you're listening to this as a podcast, just rate and review on whatever platform you're using and share it with a friend. Probably the best way to support us is by becoming a patron at patreon.com/thecontainer. There, you get access to tons of member benefits. The big one right now is you get all of our episodes on the Tao Te Ching, where we compare how this is actually secretly the ultimate guide to circling and surrendered leadership. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Now back to our interview with Martje Witzel. Yeah, I've noticed, like I've often had this resistance to the idea of like the universe is powered by love, or like God is love. I've always heard that and been like, give me a break, you know? But then I think there's another way of looking at it. Love less like the word would mean like I love, um yeah, I don't know, as it's like kind of
Yeah.
Valentine's Day card love, and more thinking of like if we're all connected, then when that connection is fully glowing and you're able to really see it and fully appreciate it and honor it, while being like empowered by it. There's a way that that is really what love is, and that there's like it's like this full glow
Of yes.
of yes to what's here, yeah. And that's like, yeah, that is like kind of captured by that, but I think I've often had walls up against the, yeah, seeing it that way.
Yeah, it sounds like a reframing of, like, for instance, like with the word God, right? We have like things attached to that, and to love too.
Mm-hmm.
Where yeah, I can relate to like the kind of like the last descriptions you gave of love, where for me it's like more, oh, it's here in life, and I kind of see it as the expression of life,
Mm.
and then I can allow it, like, and it's the goodness. Like, I think inherently people want to move to good,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't move to goodness if, yeah, there's disbalance in some way, or they're like disconnected, um
Right.
or yeah, programmed in that way. But if we, like, a tree also moves to goodness, right? It just does its thing, and it like grows every year, and it creates leaves, and it, like, when it gets sick, it's out of balance, and it might fall and like down and harm something. But like the nature is good, and I think that is love.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the nature. It's the baseline. It's below everything else. It's like the underlying structure of all. And there's like a, I think in those spaces where everything kind of begins to connect, it's like, I don't know, the word vibration keeps coming up. It's like where things are matching in that moment in a way. It's like this convergence of a matching
Mm.
expression of the thing that is, or maybe it's more of a stripping away of other
I
things.
That is my hunch. I've thought of this connection a couple of times in our conversation about the when they started up psychedelic research again after many decades, at least in this country and the US, it was Schedule 1 and you couldn't even research it hardly.
Mm-hmm.
Um then finally they started researching again with all of our like neuroscientific breakthroughs, and so they would hook people up to all of these like sci-fi looking gadgets and like give them mushrooms and then see what the brain looks like. And
Mm-hmm.
to anyone who's eaten mushrooms, you would expect that the brain scan would be like, it would just be like a nuclear bomb going off or something, just like lights
Mm.
and color, and that they're um I think many listeners are probably familiar with this. The counterintuitive outcome was that actually it reduces brain activity in the default mode network. So it's actually like you actually get way more, um, like you perceive a huge amount actually by reducing activity in one area. And that,
The mind.
yeah, yeah, the like if you just quiet the monkey mind, then you get these effects, and that you get very similar effects, mystical, and other similar as in mystical, even like visually, yeah, like stupendous and resplendent, um from this practice of actually not adding things in but taking enough away that you can actually like allow things to emerge, or like actually see the connection and focus on the connections rather than on all of these like cartoon ideas we've placed on top of it. I That is how I'm thinking of it right now. And yeah, I feel like I've been in touch with that a couple of times in the conversation so far, that there's something really important about what surrendered leadership and the practice take away rather than what they
Mm.
add, something like that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I like it. I'm still like digesting it. Like it's like yeah, the word listening comes up for me. Like when there is less, I can listen more deeply. And I have that especially when I'm in like wild nature where there is a lot of aliveness, right? And like animals and but I can listen deeply and hear my truth or truth uh more clearly, where when there is more, yeah, more like being in a city, which I do like, but it just takes up a certain bandwidth of space where the listening and maybe like the deeper seeing
Yeah.
is harder to access.
Yeah.
Something that like really hit, that was a direct hit.
Mm.
You bring up the concept of listening, because there's like, yeah, unlike all of our other senses, that you have to be the like cliche you say, you have to be quiet to listen, or like, closed mouth open ears. But that's like, it is uniquely like that with our spiritual practices, that to actually hear the message, we have to tune ourselves down. We have to like stop talking. And there's a way that our brain is constantly talking. And yeah, and listening is such a there's something very humble about bringing it down to that. It feels really real, and um yeah. So I'm really appreciating that and like holding on to that. Mm.
It was with like a question came up around why are we doing this thing, these practices, these like what's, and it links to a workshop from Sean on the festival, or was a dialogue. It was on the last day. I don't think you were there, but it was like, what is the world calling us for? That was the title. And it's still with me for the last 2 weeks or 1.5. Uh, and it feels related to the question like, oh, why do we do this thing?
Right.
And then, yeah, looking at in a bigger picture or a bit bigger frame. Yeah. And it feels important. And in a way, it feels connected to the listening for me. Because I believe we really need to listen more deeply. And we, I mean, humans. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is, I remember months ago we had a podcast, we had a guest on, Kathy Courtney. Um, and we had, it's really interesting to be doing this podcast. In this moment, I'm like noticing the growth that I've experienced through this project and thinking back to the conversation we had with Kathy about listening and hearing, and how different my experience is in considering that inquiry or question now.
Mm.
um that it's, on this more surface level, it's like, oh yeah, I'm a really good listener. Or, I think of, I brought this up on that episode, that at school my 4-year-old's teacher will say, oh, did you put your listening ears on? Or like, and really they're just wanting, they're not asking if he's a good listener, they're asking if he hears what the other person is saying, which is such a difference. Those two verbs are so different. But then there's this other level of listening that's like from a cellular, almost like body embodied, like much, much deeper type of listening that involves things that aren't just sound, like has nothing to do with sound. It's like, and yeah, and that it could be that simple. Like, why are we doing these practices? To practice listening. That it could sound that simple. Like the answer could sound that simple and have so much depth to it. I don't know.
And why do we listen deeper? Yeah. Like I believe that is like needed to, like it's like in my world, like these times are really complex and it becomes even more complexer and complexer, and it's hard for me to like grasp all those things, and then I have a choice to just like listen and like follow my truth. And I think I hope people do that more,
Yeah.
like listen like to each other also deeply, but also like to the world. And the world means also like the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know. Like I don't know what will change or can change, but I believe this is like part of what's needed. I'm also a bit aware I brought it to like this big theme or something. Like I was a bit self aware, or like, ah, like can I speak to this?
Mm.
Yeah. Because I don't have like an answer, but it feels an important question. And I want to share something from the circle which felt really interesting for me, because there was like the theme was, okay, what is the world calling for us for? And then people started sharing their like opinions or expressions, and I got a bit like uncomfortable and resistant. And then I started changing something when someone said I want, or I think. I in my mind I would replace that by the world. So it was like I allowed the world to speak through them, and it became less personal. And it was like, oh, I'm in this field of perspectives
Yeah.
and experiences, and I listen different when I make it like less about the person but more of about the expression of something.
Mm.
And I think that was like part of at least what I think, as I represent the world too, like what is needed, that we listen more from, yeah, a place of, the word unity comes up, although there can be like difference in opinion, but less of like, oh, that person says that and that person says that and that person says that. Oh no, this is the world speaking and this is the world speaking and this is the world speaking.
Yeah.
And how can that meet? Yeah, like I saw your movement.
Yeah. Bringing it all in, the
Yeah.
harmony, the, what is that side of the tree of life called?
Yeah, I think we settled on harmony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Harmony versus authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like when this move of being like the world says X makes it like, I think there's this level of consciousness we can have, especially with really divisive issues where it's like, this is just the way things are and have to be right now, or like, this is the way the flower is blooming right now. And part of it is that some people are saying this and some people are saying that. And it's like, it's an expression of the time and the place and the what's here, and it's not like, yeah, I don't know, bringing it to that level of consciousness makes it feel so much more workable, or like we could actually be together in our differences. We could actually like remain in connection.
Yeah, and see, like, we are all the world, right? Like, so we are already in connection.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think that's like where I loop it back to like how I see things. Like
Yeah.
as yeah, like it is already here.
Mm.
Yeah. I love that. I don't even know if that's intentional or this is just who you are as a human, but there's like this practice I experience in you of that looping back, that folding back to,
Mm.
it reminds me of what we were talking about earlier in this podcast, where you were at the birthday party or the wedding. It's like looping it back. It's a lens, and then and then it's like, but it is the world. It is what we are. It is me.
Yeah.
It is like, it almost feels like a practice one could implement this thing that you do naturally, Marja.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like I can give like an exercise
Is there?
where it's very short. I can well, you can just do it by yourself, but what's really like shifted something in me, which like when I lay down, and it could be on the bed or on the grass, and then I feel it first into I, like me. Oh, what's present here in me? And then I shift, oh, I'm laying on this like thing, like the earth. And then, oh, what if the earth can feel me?
Oh,
And often what happens for me is like space opens up, like immense space, and me becoming way more smaller. Like I have an experience of being small, but like in a good way, in a humbled way, and like, oh, I'm just part of this big universe, mystery, life thing, and there's so much more than this like little I.
yeah.
Yeah. So I would really recommend that if you're interested in this stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a great meditation. I
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. I feel like that really lands the plane.
I do want
Like
to
the
say one thing about it. I,
uh-huh.
I I do believe the earth can feel me. By the way, it's not only a question, but I want to like just give my view. Yeah.
Yes. I
Mm,
believe the earth can feel me as well.
mm.
Yeah.
I am the world saying that the earth can feel us. Um
The world is saying that the world. Good.
um
Yeah.
so if people want to connect more with you, and see more of your material, or like, or
Or are you still you're offering coaching? Is that
Yeah.
something you offer?
Yeah. I
yeah,
give
yeah.
one-on-one coaching. And I do work with Circling Europe, and I um also offer sometimes events through my own website, which can be online, and sometimes in person, where I'm at the world. It changes. Yeah, it's like most convenient is to find me on Instagram or Facebook. And I have a website which is called allthereis.com, but it has like dashes between, like the in the middle. Is that a dash? Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
horizontal? Yeah. This is like where my English is not like really trained. I'm good at expressing feelings, but like so it's all dash there dash is.com.
And we'll put that in the show notes as well. So
Yeah.
someone can
Yeah.
find.
And the coaching I offer is mostly like focused on yeah, like being present with what is, and then like opening up for transformation in that. Yeah.
The container is now closed. We are so grateful to Martje Witzel. And after getting to meet her in person, we knew this is someone we gotta get on the show. And then she delivered with really deep insights into how these practices not only help us to connect to each other, but like see these layers of reality that are always here but often obscured. If you want more Martje, and who wouldn't, go to allthereis.com. That's all-there-is.com. Link in show notes. And coming up in the future, we're trying something a little bit different. So change is always exciting, and it's never scary. That's not true. Often it's very scary. We are going to present longer episodes, but we're only going to release them twice a month. So it'll be like the same number of minutes of the container you get, but it'll be all in a single package. And then we're gonna like release more video only content on the YouTube that's a little more geared towards introducing a broader audience to the beauty of these practices. For patrons, of course, you'll still be getting the way they can be told every week. And we might also move in some other surprises, maybe some written stuff, as a way of loving our patrons. I guess with that, we have a really nice way of closing. Keep it namaste.